I can, yes. Would it be better if I lowered this a little bit, or is it?
Hey everybody, Lawrence from financialthing.com, the Thursday evening peer-to-peer lending live stream. Apologies for the not being here on Tuesday evening, but something came up. But we are here as always. If you have any questions or comments, we have a special guest this evening. We're doing our Q&A with Lendwise founder, and his name is Rishi Zaveri. Probably butchered his name a little bit, but try not to. Yeah, we're going to find out about student lending. This is a company who does peer-to-peer lending via student loans. I'm just going to show you their website very quickly. An interesting space, not one that we've really covered here, but it looks like an interesting space, as you know, and they specifically focus on graduate degree lending, so a little bit of a different type of customer. We're going to find out all about them and what they're up to, what Rishi feels about the peer-to-peer lending space, find out about risk and how risky this type of lending is. We've got a lot of different questions for him. Yeah, I just found this space particularly interesting. As a former student myself many moons ago. Not that long ago, but yes, it was a while ago. But yeah, welcome to everybody. If you're watching this in the future, welcome to YouTube. Please leave a comment and hit that thumbs up button if you can. As you know, we do this out of love for you to provide a lot of information, a lot of great information. All we ask is that you hit that thumbs up button so YouTube gives us a smiley face and doesn't take us down again like they did before. Anyway, without further ado, let me bring the man himself on. There he is, Rishi Zaveri. How are you doing today, Rishi, or this evening? I'm doing just great, just great. Well, we're going to get right into it. We have about 25 people tuning in live right now to hear everything that you have to say. They are, waiting on every word and every breath that you have. So don't get nervous. No, I'm just kidding. It's nothing like that. We're going to have a casual conversation. We got all the regular peer-to-peer people here who love this space. Everybody likes to find out about new opportunities because, that's one of the things that we struggle with right now as lenders. We just don't have enough quality places to invest in because of what's happened over the last couple of years. So hence you being here. Tell me about what year did Lendwise launch and when was your first loan?
Missions in just at the end of quarter one in 2018, and our first loan, and we sort of I think opened our doors, so to speak, in August that year, and so our first loan sort of closed in just, I think, at the beginning of quarter four of 2018.
So that was trying to do my math here. 5, 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, coming on to sort of 4 years now. So authorization was 4 years ago, exactly.
4 years ago, okay. And
around now.
We tried to do a little bit of a background, as in the founders, where they came from. So let's just concentrate maybe on you and somebody else that you think is important within the company that we should know about. But what's your kind of background to do with before you did Lendwise? What were you up to?
Sure. So there's the three of us co-founders. There's myself, there's Yanis Georgiou, and Kypros Mouzoros, who I think you have sort of spoken to. And yeah, I mean, together, without sort of sounding very old, we've got, I think, a combined sort of experience of over 60 years. I mean, so myself, my background was in investment banking within the financial services sector, so kind of advising um, a range of financial services companies, and spending kind of a lot of time understanding, operationally how they work and so on. And my fellow co-founders, again, a range of experiences across the banking space, covering treasury, corporate banking. Again, a very deep understanding of the lending space, as well as the sort of the finance side and the planning of that. So
Yeah,
yeah, a real kind of
important
a
too.
very broad.
Important nowadays too, because what we found is in the past, some of the companies that have not done well, uh, turns out maybe they didn't have as much experience in the lending side. Maybe they were more tech people. So I think that's an important thing that we distinguish that.
I think so, and I think I've been a regulated individual my entire career, actually, and I think that certainly has held us in good stead as far as the sort of regulation is concerned, and sort of understanding it, and in a way inculcating that within the firm, right? So I think that's very important.
You're based in London, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Who do you support football wise? This is a very important question. Or do you? Do you support anyone?
Fulham. I live in Fulham,
You're a
and so
Fulham.
it's
Oh, okay.
and we're sort of sitting, touch wood, at the top of the table right now. So
Okay.
so fingers crossed. We're heading back to the Premier League,
All
but
right. There
hopefully I
you
haven't
go.
jinxed anything.
I just threw
Uh,
that in there to throw you off a little bit. Like football and talking about football. Um, okay,
who do
so
you support, by the way?
who do I support? I tell you what, I'm a diehard Grimsby Town
Ah,
football.
okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Mariners,
all
of
right.
course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've been in the bottom division as long as I can remember, and what they do now is they take a hat round and they collect money from the supporters to pay the players at the end of the game. So it's quite nice, grassroots, right? Grassroots. But no, I'm
Very good.
honestly I'm not really a big football fan, never was, but I like basketball. Weirdly enough, so
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, let's continue. So, can you tell people that might not be aware of what you do, what kind of product that you offer? What does Lemwise offer exactly to
Yeah, I mean,
investors?
we are, the only peer-to-peer platform in the UK that I'm aware of which does education finance, and it's super exciting. We're, our I'll cover off, I guess, the product from a borrower's perspective, so that our viewers can kind of understand, the product that they would be kind of lending into in that sense. So it's very much, if I take a step back, um, there's a few sort of uh, I guess problem statements that we look to sort of solve as we establish Lendwise and its mission, which is to enable access to education. And we know that good education can be expensive, and we also know that good education leads to very positive outcomes, whether it's in terms of salary progression, career development, and so on. And that's kind of in the context of reskilling as well as upskilling. But we also know that the age at which individuals typically undertake postgraduate education, the best earning years are still ahead of them. So then, if you're going to judge them on or look at their credit score, then you're probably not going to get much. And so, in a way, again, coming back to the problem that if you have the merit, the capability, and the ability, and the aptitude to study further, but you don't have access to the funds, then it means that you're going to miss out on those positive outcomes. So how do we address that? And that's what we're doing. And I'm very proud to say that that is what we're doing. If you look at some of our trust pilot reviews, and we've got some student experiences on our blog, which really do kind of um, validate the impact that we're having. And this is very much a social impact investment here, right? Where in a way we are putting we're the S in the ESG, and so the product is a very kind of student friendly, flexible product. Um, so if I give you some of the features, if you're studying for a full-time course, the interest accrues and the repayments start after you graduate. There are no early sort of repayment penalties. If you want to repay your loan early, the interest rate is fixed. So there's a balance there between making it flexible for the borrower, but also attractive for a lender. And what's interesting is that generally speaking, we're starting with a very good set of people in that nobody needs to do a postgraduate degree. So these are individuals who are ambitious individuals. They want to get ahead. They want that sort of they want to, as I was saying earlier, improve their career profile, their earnings potential, and that's something that we then bring in to our analysis. So how we're very data focused, and so our underwriting process is I think very, very different, because we look at a range of education related variables, right? So and because we cover postgraduate education, we're sort of able to look at, okay, where was the undergraduate university, and where was tier 1, tier 2, and so on, rank it. Where's the course? Is it a prime course? Not. Where's the postgraduate institution that they're studying at? Is it tier 1, tier 2, and so on? Again, the course. For many courses, we have course level data that tells us what incoming salaries, outgoing salaries are, so we can start to map out the future earnings potential. And a range of, if you've got work experience, is it relevant? And then we overlay on that additional data at macro level, kind of for industry wide and so on. So, all of that to build a holistic sort of picture of an individual that aids in our sort of creditworthiness assessment.
And how much approximately can lenders expect to earn on average through the year if they were to borrow or to lend against these peer-to-peer loans?
So just to, I'll come to your answer in a second, but just to give a bit of context to that. So one thing that we were that was very important to us was that, diversification and returns, therefore, is different for different people. And I think, so what our platform allows you to do, and I think we're one of the very few consumer platforms that do this, is it allows you to sort of select on a loan by loan basis. So you can, each loan is there as an individual, as opposed to sort of putting lenders into a pool of loans. And so you can define your own pool, and I'm sure we'll go on to talk about that. But you can define your own sort of pool in that sense of diversification. So there isn't a one set return, but on average, if we look at all of the loans that we have on the books, so to speak, you can earn up to sort of 9%. I mean, we've seen a number of investors earning sort of 9. We've seen some earn even higher. Some individuals have a lower sort of return appetite, let's say, and so they've actually set it up so that they actually earn less. So it's not that they're not, it's just if they're choosing what they want to earn. But to give you a range, our sort of top rate loan on the platform probably gets you around 11%, 10 to 11%, 11 I would say at top, and then at the bottom end it's probably about 5.5%. As a lender. So that's the range of the loans that are available. And obviously, as you define your own pool and invest in them, obviously your weighted average between those two numbers will differ. And and as I say, we let the lender sort of define that.
Okay. So do the interest returns that are paid indicate sort of the risk that's involved with that particular borrower? And if you go for a higher percent rate loan, does that indicate that the borrower is more likely to not to pay, or?
That's a very good question. I mean, the thing is, we put everyone through a very rigorous assessment, which I sort of highlighted, some of the variables we look at, but also there are some sort of foundation rules that we have, which, and we're members of something called responsible finance, which, and so responsible lending is a key pillar of our sort of strategy as far as the underwriting process is concerned. And And so if individuals are sort of in arrears or have defaults, then they don't make it onto the platform in terms of their loans. So, they don't get assessed. So so we do kind of require a clean credit record. We sort of accept that actually the score might be low because you just, as I say, your best earning years are ahead of you, and you haven't had that chance to take on the debt and show you can repay it to get that higher score. That comes later. So, but yeah, bad credit. So we don't think the right thing is, if you've got bad credit, to provide access to more debt. So in terms of so if you think of that as a starting point, we have that range. So if we talk about borrower rates, they range from about I would say 7.5% through up to about 12 to 13%. 13, I think, is our we don't have that many, but there's a few loans that borrowers have at 13%. It's not so much. It's probably more of a reflection of earnings potential, and just their kind of the course. So whereas a premium tier 1 MBA, at, let's say, London Business School, might sort of be around again, from a lender's perspective, you're sort of lending at sort of 6.5%, maybe 6.5%, 6.75%, or let's say INSEAD, which is like one of the top business schools in the world and in Europe. That's the kind of rate that you can expect. But then the stats are overwhelming when you look at sort of what the graduates end up sort of doing. And then on the other hand, if you're sort of in a sort of slightly lower tier university, it's not that we don't expect you or the individual to get a job, and therefore there's a risk to repayment if we saw that, we wouldn't put the loan on the platform. But it's just a reflection of maybe the course is not as high paying and so on, and so it's the relative point, I guess, as opposed to an absolute one.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. So let's say a lender decides to come in and deposit some money on Lendwise. How long can they expect before they actually start receiving returns? Is it once the money is deployed into loans?
Yes, and we have so and you can either be invested into, and it's not a choice, but we have some loans where individuals are still studying, and therefore they're in what we call grace, where the interest is
Nope, I think we lost Rishi. Let me try to get him. Nope, hang on. Hold on. Just bear with me for a second. Oh, are you there, Rishi? Oh, okay. You froze.
Been here the whole time, actually. So
you froze for a second.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Am I good now? Okay, yeah. So I don't know what the last thing.
Oh, you said that the last thing, that some of the loans are in grace periods while the students were still studying.
Correct. So the interest is accruing, and then the repayments will start once they graduate from their course. Or you could be invested into a loan where the individual's already graduated and they're in the process of repaying, so that they've graduated and the repayments have started. So you could get invested into that loan, or for individuals studying for part-time courses, or if they're studying for an online course, or they're doing an executive MBA program, or anything which you're partly studying and working the other part of the time, we start repayments at the end. So if you're invested, you can expect to get return interest on a basis from the outset.
Okay.
So yes, and once you start getting returns straight away, I guess is the point.
Okay. And once a student starts on the repayment time frame, how often are lenders actually paid? Is that a monthly? Do they get paid monthly or
monthly?
Okay.
Monthly, yes, okay. Monthly, yeah. We collect via direct debit every month. Yeah, exactly.
Direct debit. The wonders of direct debit. I'm a big fan. Let's see what else. What is the, sometimes we talk about spreads on this channel about the difference between what lenders are being paid and what borrowers are being paid, because I think you can have some indication of risk when it comes to that. And what is that type of spread that the borrowers are actually paying back on their loans APR wise?
So it's 2%, I guess, which is our sort of servicing fee, between which stands between the borrower and the lender, I guess, and that's our sort of alignment piece, right, for our economic model. So we're not getting that servicing fee unless it's coming from the borrowers. Unless it's coming in from the borrowers, and so we're aligned with our. So we like to think we're aligned with our investors on that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
it's 2%.
That's
is it so?
Yeah, it's 2%. And
yeah, let me ask you about. Sorry to cut you off. Did you have something else you wanted to?
Well, I was going to say, and on our platform, you can actually see that, right? So I think we're, again, one of the very few that actually show it. So when you look at a loan entry, you'll see, university of whatever, you'll see the interest rate to, the gross and the net. And the gross is what the borrower is paying, and net is what you're getting as a lender. So, and as I say, that's very important because, I think for other platforms where you get pooled, you don't quite know exactly what the underlying is. Whereas in this case, you always know what the underlying is. So and that is ultimately the measure of risk, right? Is the interest rate, as far as the our platform is concerned. And so yeah, we think it's very important that lenders are able to sort of transparently see that. Yeah,
it should be the measure of risk, and in some cases, not always, but hopefully a good platform would be the best level of indicator of risk. Let me ask you on an economic level, as a business running on a 2% margin, how does that work financially for a business owner? I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot to be able to operate a company. Do you guys have additional ways of revenue?
So we also have a sort of admin fee that typically gets added to the loan, although borrowers can, if they want, pay that up front. But then that is also part of our economics, is the admin fee.
Okay. Yeah, I always ask that because I sometimes I think, well, some companies do operate off of a 2% margin, which is very razor thin when you're talking about the expenses.
It is, but also this, we've always seen this as it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, I think, in that sense. We've been very measured. We've, been very careful to make sure that our track record, so origination is one thing, but it's been very important for us as founders to make sure that the repayments come in, and so, validates the process and everything, right? So, and I think, we're very proud. Like we were talking about direct debit, we have a 96% collections on time rate, which again, we're immensely proud of. But that's, also all of that is part of kind of the underwriting process, and also the way kind of that we have the collections sort of part of the business as well. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Do you guys have a secondary market if lenders decide they want to exit? I haven't been able to sign up. Usually I try to go in and look at the back end, but I don't know why.
We'd love to have you as
I would love to sign in and kind of poke around, do some more research, but I haven't had time to do that. So yeah, is there a secondary market?
There is, yeah, no, and for exactly the reason that you say, so that there are some, and some of our loans do go for, because our loans can go up to 100K, the repayment terms can be on the longer side, and so if you do need liquidity earlier, the secondary market is there. There is, if I just tell you a couple of things about it, as a seller on there, I mean, obviously it's about there needs to be matched demand for if you're putting a loan investment up, and you can put part of your loan investment. You don't have to put all of it up for sale, but you can put part of it up for sale, and there needs to be a willing buyer in that sense on the other side. It costs the seller 1% of the transaction value if a transaction goes through. Mm-hmm. There's no pricing to it, so it's done at par in that sense. And then as a result of that, only performing loans are there on the secondary market.
How active is the secondary market?
I mean, there's always this. I mean, there's pretty much. I don't think there a day goes by where there isn't some activity on it.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely,
Okay.
there's always some activity on it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. I had to make notes today because I'm not smart enough to go off the top of the head. Unfortunately,
I'm sure
don't
that's
let
okay.
the glasses fool you. Uh, so let's see. We covered the secondary market. So how long does one of these loans last for exactly? What are the loan
So
terms?
so our loan terms go up to 10 years, but we do have a
Wow.
complete range on the platform. So if you think about somebody borrowing 60, 70K to do their MBA at INSEAD or London Business School, then those typically start out at 10 years. But remember, some of these guys and girls are, individuals are very driven, so they graduate and they get pretty decent jobs with sign-on bonuses, and they sort of pay chunk down. They're very driven in that sense. So what's 10 years doesn't necessarily always go 10 years. And in fact, if we look at the settlement sort of experience of the loans that have been settled, of the ones that we've written, or the platform has originated, um, they tend to go about sort of 30-40% of the journey. So they're, some of them, and that's on average, of course. So some of them go through all the way, but many of them get settled early. And we regularly see people paying down. When they get a bonus or something, they'll just pay a chunk down,
Mm-hmm.
because that's one of the features, is that sort of level of flexibility. And we have this tool on the platform called AutoLend. Sorry if I'm sort of jumping ahead of one
No,
of
it's
your
fine. Go
questions.
ahead. I'm going to ask you all this stuff anyway. So.
Which allows you to sort of set up your strategy, and that sort of, you can either set an interest rate range or a loan term range, or you can just let it, sort of leave those open, and so you'll just get a slice of sort of, a fully diversified loan of a portfolio of all the loans, and you can even specify specific universities or business schools, and once you've set up that sort of strategy, you can sort of set a loan amount, saying, okay, every time a loan matching this strategy comes up, invest up to £50 or £100 or whatever it is, £1,000
Mm-hmm.
into that loan. So yeah, so when a loan gets redeemed early by a borrower, and the funds come back into an investor's account, if the auto-lend strategy is active, they just get reinvested back out again into other loans on the platform.
What's the minimum, by the way, the minimum investment to get started?
So it's £200, and it's a minimum of sort of £10 in a loan. So it really is very accessible to lenders on our classic sort of account. And then we obviously have an ISA account as well. I say obviously, it's not obvious, but I mean, we have an ISA account, and there's a minimum of 1,000 for that one.
So when I think about students, I would imagine there is a smaller amount of graduate students than there are undergraduate students. So
Yeah, that's right.
do you have an easy time sourcing these loans? Is there enough people that actually go to graduate school? I would imagine most people need to borrow money to get grad degrees because they're quite expensive. How do you source your borrowers?
Yeah, well, and you're absolutely right in the way you're looking at the market, and there is a real funding gap, which is why we exist, I guess. Yeah, our borrowers come through in a sort of range of sort of online and offline, if I can call them that, strategies. We are now sort of 4 years into our journey, and I think we're becoming synonymous with education finance. So there are we're sort of there. We're on a number of university websites that sort of list us as, a education loan option if individuals require additional funding to make enrollment happen. So I mentioned a couple of those, but also on sort of University of Oxford, Imperial College, LSE, Oxford, Cambridge, if I mentioned. So yeah, there's a range of universities that will sort of have us sort of mentioned, and then we're at the sort of postgraduate fairs and referrals, right? So I think in a way our best sort of advocate is our individuals who have got the loan and, as I say, had the positive outcome as a result, able to achieve enrollment, graduate, pursue their career, their ambitions, and let people know that actually it happened because of Lendwise, or Lendwise played a part. So yeah, a lot of our sort of borrowers come through in that channel as well.
Who is your competition when it comes to this type of lending, and why do Lendwise borrowers come to you versus going to, I don't know, what can they go to a bank to get a student loan?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think it's kind of it's other lenders, and I think they come to us because we sort of understand we're very student specific, right? I talked about sort of the fact that the loan, when you're studying full time, the interest is accruing, but you don't have to worry about repayments. You focus on your studies, and the repayments will start after you graduate. The fact that they're not locked in because they can repay the loan early, without any sort of fees or penalties. So it's these sort of aspects that kind of and the fact that we look at all these data points and assess them with education, in mind and context. That's why. That's why I think they come to us, is because we sort of understand the journey they're going on, and the fact that we exist to enable that journey to happen.
So, for anybody that's joined us late, we have Rishi Zaveri, who is the front man of Lendwise. Are you the founder? How do I refer to you? The CEO?
I'm a co-founder.
You're the co-founder,
and
okay.
CEO, but yeah,
Co-founder,
and
okay.
I mentioned my fellow co-founders.
Yes.
So
yeah, if you have a question, there's something you want to learn about how to get involved with peer-to-peer lending through student loans, graduate student loans, pop your comments in the comment screen, and we'll address them at the end. Some of them we'll do as we're going along, but yeah. Really happy you're here again. Thanks for joining us. Please hit that thumbs up
Pleasure.
if you're enjoying the stream. You're getting a lot of information out of this. So the one thing that springs to mind about this type of lending for me as an investor would be there's no collateral, right? Is this an unsecured loan? This is going to make people a little bit nervous, I think. So what is your sort of rebuttal upon why they should invest through non-collateralized lending, and how hard too is it? Two-part question: how hard is it for somebody to actually get a loan? Because I'm imagining a lot of these people wouldn't be working because they're studying full time, so you have to look at different factors, like you said. But exactly what is the process that a student goes through to get this lending, and how do you identify the good versus the bad?
Well, as I say, through a combination of all the sort of variables that I referred to earlier, and we overlay that with data that gives us a level of confidence statistically in the outcome and future earnings potential, right? I mean, these are driven individuals, right? So, as I referred to it earlier, that nobody needs to do this postgraduate degree. I mean, these are and these are institutions that you can't just walk into and say, oh, I'd like to do a postgraduate degree, and they say, yeah, come on in, right? You've got to apply, you've got to be selected, and so there's an element of being, you're backing individuals who are investing in, in themselves in a way. So that's the difference here, is that they're not borrowing for any other purpose, but they're borrowing to get ahead, and that goes hand in hand with that sort of the notion, or the behavior of a can pay will pay.
Yeah.
As we refer to internally. So yeah, I think that's that, and our track record, as I was sort of saying earlier, right? Our track record, and you look at, and I'm sure you've got questions on our default stats, but our track record sort of, I think, validates that we have so far picked the individuals that I'm referring to, right? So look, there's all kinds of individuals out there, but we pick the ones that as I say, are driven to get ahead, and tick both the can pay and the will pay buckets.
Okay. Do you have
Process.
a statistics page on the website? Because I was looking, I couldn't see where that's located.
We do. It's in if you go under invest, and then you scroll down, you'll see statistics.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can. I was just looking at it, trying to find it here. Lendwise investing. Is it under investing with Lendwise? Is that the page?
Yes. Yes. So you click invest, and then you just sort of scroll down.
Oh, here we go.
Statistics.
Gotcha. That's what I was looking for. Okay, talk to me about the statistics and the default statistics.
So if you look at and so again, we're very proud of I mentioned the 96% sort of on-time collection rate, right? And that sort of comes through. So if you look at of all the loans that we've originated to date, about 1.4% are in default. And if you look at the outstanding balances, if you take away what's been settled, it's 1.7%. And the arrears piece is equally kind of low at about 80 basis points or 0.8% of all loans since inception, and about just about still under 1% if you look at just the current outstanding sort of loans and arrears as a percentage of that. And I think so. It's very important that I point out we are very, I've seen different lenders do different things and different platforms do different things, approaches to defaults, but we're very strict on this. After 90 days in arrears, we mark it as a default. Now, our true non-recoverable defaults is actually much lower. But so what we have in this default number are individuals who have fallen behind by more than 3 months, so they're a default, but for the large part are still repaying. And so imagine a 6-year loan that has gone off the tracks for more than 90 days. And that's in a way we're putting our hands up and saying, look, that's lenders who didn't get their money on time for 90 days. So that's not to be taken lightly. So it's been marked as a default. But imagine that loan then being back on track. That's still going to have to ride out for 5 years, albeit it's behind by maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months or something. But it's now classed as a default. So we show it under recoveries. But so we have a large amount of those loans in default that are actually repaying, and some of them, as I say, are back on track. It's just once they're a default, they're a default. And our process is fully in-house, and and I think that's the best way to get engagement, and engagement gets results as far as problem loans are concerned.
So it seems like you have just me looking at the statistics, you have a very good track record. So this is going back to 2018. One thing I've always wondered is with unsecured debt, let's say somebody goes into default, other than their credit score being damaged, what is the repayment, what burden on their side? Like why would somebody bother to repay other than their credit score getting ruined? Is that the only thing?
Well, we could. No, there's a number of different processes that are available to us, and we never, and some of these are very much sort of last resort type steps that we would take. But we have a duty of care to our lenders to safeguard their investment, and so we will take those steps if we have to, and they involve legal processes, and so taking them to court effectively for CCJ, but it doesn't stop there, right? So we can get an order from a judge, which it's an order to pay a certain amount a month, or we can get an attachment to earnings order, which means that they have to actually it means that it goes to their employer, and the employer deducts a certain amount every month, and that's binding. So those there's a number of different avenues that are available that will require someone to repay, and quite often we find that different people wake up at different points of time, whether and as I say, we have that full in-house process from end to end, and we haven't had to deploy it for very many cases, but where we have, we found sometimes just a letter from the solicitor sort of sorts it out. Other times, we have no choice but to actually file the case in court, and then when you get an email or a letter from Her Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Services, that's not pleasant, and so then people wake up and say, okay, like, how do I, now I know it's serious. Maybe they were trying to call out bluff or something, but I think it's one of those things. As I say, it's not something we take pride in doing or anything like that, but our lenders are our customers as much as our borrowers are, and so we'll do what it takes to make sure they get repaid, right?
So and hopefully if you have to go to court, hopefully it's not against a law school graduate. So that would be pretty.
The thing is that's the greatest disincentive, if that's a word, that they have, because if you have that mark against you, it's going to be very difficult to practice law, actually. So, and we do a number of law courses, and so they tend to be good payers.
Yeah. I always have mixed feelings about student debt and whatnot, because it's just the way I am. I always try to think about it logically, but I do see what you're providing is a good service, especially for graduate students, because they are going to be considered on that higher income level. Usually graduate students are, and I think what you're doing is you're just providing an easier way for somebody to accomplish what their hopes and dreams are. Maybe it's to get that graduate degree, and you're providing that service to do so. So I think that feels better to me, because I've just never really been a big fan of student debt. I see it as becoming an increasing problem, especially in undergraduates. I mean, here in the US, we have this massive student debt problem, and I don't know if that's going to implode at some point, but I think there are certain cases where you just need to take debt to get to that next level in education and career.
I think that's right, and I think it's our job to lend responsibly and make sure we're not facilitating the provision of debt at a level where we know that it can't be repaid, or that it's just going to cause financial difficulty, and that's something we'll never do. And that genuinely is very important to us, and so we'll turn loans away if we don't think individuals can afford them, in that sort of holistic sort of future earnings potential and sort of assessment sense. And also part of it comes down to the rates, right? So if the rates are too high, it becomes a problem. If they're too low, it's a commercial issue because you can't get the lenders. So it's about striking that balance, which I think again we have. And I talked a lot about the MBA space, because in a way it's kind of it's intuitive in that they're expensive, and the outcomes are good for for good business schools. But there is there's impact that we have all throughout the curve, if I can call it that. There's a course which is most people may not even heard of it, but it's a physician associate studies course, which effectively it's kind of the closest thing to a medical degree without actually becoming a doctor, but it takes you from a band 3 on the NHS, which is sort of maybe maybe typically a nurse or someone like that, with a few years experience on a sort of 33 sort of thousand type salary, and it's a 2-year course. First year is fully academic, second year is full of placements, and within a couple of years you're pushing band 5 on the NHS, which is kind of north of 40,000 a year. And that's taking somebody and lifting them from one income bracket and permanently putting them in a higher bracket. Right? Now that course costs around sort of 20,000, and there isn't enough support that you get from the government system. So how do you enable that, right? And the NHS needs all the help it can get, by the way. So yeah, that's I think where we're sort of making a difference.
I like that. Let me ask you about fraud. I know that in some cases I've heard that students could take out a loan and then not use it for studying and just disappear. How do you prevent that?
So we predominantly lend for tuition fees only, and they get transferred to the university, so or course provider. So it's as simple as that. And I think
zero fraud then.
There's yeah, pretty much.
Unless the
We've not
university
come
is
across
a
a case.
fake university. That
Well, exactly, and we have an onboarding sort of diligence process that takes care of that. But we deal with accredited universities. So.
Okay, and you said you have an ISA. That's correct. Do you have an ISA
that's
product?
Right.
Okay. Couple of things that I've written down. I have to ask you. I'm going to ask you at the end, essentially, not to get too far off the topic of Lendwise, but one thing I want to know is, are you registered in Cyprus or in the UK?
No, so Lendwise Limited is a UK entity, or incorporated in England, and it's the authorized entity.
Okay, because I think I know one of your guys that I've been talking to is located in Cyprus, and maybe there's a controlling entity in Cyprus.
Yeah, so we so both my fellow co-founders are Cypriot and therefore based in Cyprus. Their families are there, and we have our IT team that's based out there, and our finance team is based out there as well. And we're all partners in that entity, and Lendwise is a wholly owned subsidiary of that entity. But Lendwise is the regulated entity, and that is that's as I say incorporated here
in the UK. Okay,
in the UK.
How, you don't have to answer this, but sometimes I ask, people who are running peer-to-peer lending companies, on a scale of 1 to 10, just in your opinion, how risky is lending through Lendwise?
It's not that I don't want to answer that. I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean,
do you consider it like a low-risk lending product because they are graduate students versus, say, real estate development lending or something like that?
I mean, the truth is it's an unsecured loan, but I think we've de-risked it as much as possible in terms of the approach.
Come back to us, Rishi.
We take.
There you go.
Oh.
No, you're good now. Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying, the sort of rules that we have in terms of if you've got sort of defaults and arrears, then you can't get a loan and so on. The sticking to predominantly tuition fees and making sure they get transferred to universities, all of that, and then looking very much at outcomes, right? So when we see an individual and the course they're doing, we assess the individual, but we're also looking at the outcome to make sure that there is a future earnings ability to repay that, and the track record is there. So it's so 10 is what? 10 is risky or not risky?
10 is 10 is very risky.
My own personal.
Yeah, 10 is the riskiest.
Look, I'm also. Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, can you hear me? Hold on. Can you hear me? Oh dear, there we go. Let's bring him back on.
Hi.
There you go. Okay, you're back.
The
UK internet is not playing kind.
Going on and on, and then I suddenly realized that actually you weren't moving.
No, I'm here. So yeah, 10 would be the riskiest. 1 would be the safest.
It's I would say our style means, that it's below 5, right? So that's, it's as I say, if you caught the stuff I was saying about how we've de-risked it, and I take our track record into account, which now is kind of pushing on 4 years. Yeah, I would say it's at the top end of the scale.
Okay. See, Mike was asking in the comments, is your ISA flexible? Is there a fee to transfer out?
It's flexible.
Okay.
There's no fee.
No fee, good. Let me ask you about, you're a finance guy, and we talk a lot about cryptocurrency, just to get off topic for a second. Are you a fan? Not a fan? What do you think?
I'm intrigued. I'm a fan in that I'm interested to sort of see what happens. I don't, but I'm balanced. Yeah. So I'm kind of, I have the same questions. I wonder, and I think, it's a very broad topic, right? And actually, I think what we see now, or what we think now as crypto, probably isn't how it'll end up, right? Like all good things, it'll go through its kind of morphing phase, but I think some form of digital currency and the notion of tokenization, I think there are some merits to that in certain valid applications that innovation, I think, will be relevant for. I think we're at that phase where kind of it's sort of trying to be applied to everything, and I think for some things, you've got to say, is this really a problem that needs to be solved, or is this just you're looking for the problem here? But so I think I see merits.
Yeah, I heard today that Russia was going to be accepting Bitcoin for oil as a payment for oil, because they've been bad. They're getting their wrist slapped. So that's another topic of conversation.
It is.
Rishi, I'm going to ask you some questions that have been posted here. If that's okay, we'll do a quick Q&A.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay. Let's see what we got here. Nothing bad, nothing too terrible for you, I don't think. Mike Powell was...
Someone trying to figure out where my accent is from.
Nobody has actually asked that. Although I did say at the beginning, I thought you sounded kind of a Canadian American, but you're not. So, Mike Powell was asking, he was looking for the wind down plan for the company. Is that listed on the website somewhere?
It's not on the website. It's something we don't make publicly available, but as a regulated peer-to-peer lender, that is something that we're not only required to have, but the FCA did a thematic review, and like I assume all the others, but certainly we submitted ours. They had a review, and we got a clean bill of health on that one.
Okay. Alan Stratford said, "Is there a current bottleneck? Too much lending, too much borrowing?" So, that always demand and supply balance that peer-to-peer lending companies suffer with. Are you struggling with either one of those sides at the moment?
I wouldn't say we're struggling. I think we're sort of in a genuinely are kind of we're in a very interesting space, and we're sort of as I mentioned, we're the only ones doing what we're doing. So we're seeing a lot of demand from an appetite from investors for this kind of product, which is obviously differentiated, and postgraduate registrations are increasing. We cover MBA programs, master's programs, boot camps, professional qualifications. So all of those things together, there's plenty of demand, whether it's for the more traditional type of sort of university learning, or the more kind of sort of skills based or modular lifelong learning that also is becoming very popular. So no, we're that you're absolutely right about the balancing act. That's what you've got to live with as a peer-to-peer platform. But we're not. We're finding that they're matching each other as they go up. For now, and thankfully.
Yeah. Invest22 in London says, how many investors do you currently have approximately? Do you know?
That's a very good question. I mean, they keep, this is we're at the tail end of the ISA season, so they keep, it goes up. Um, I don't want to guess. It's in the hundreds,
Hmm.
and sort of not,
Okay.
material hundreds. And we have, we have a sort of a range of, so we've got a sort of family office on there as well, and so on. So, um, but can I come back to you on that one
Yeah,
with
yeah,
an
absolutely
accurate answer?
fine.
Thank you.
Darren Chimpo Naughty, that's his nickname. Uh, Darren says, are loans only available to UK nationals or foreign students allowed to apply for these loans?
Very good question. So predominantly we cater to the UK sort of market, and that's how we started, UK domiciled residents um, at UK universities. What we've then expanded to is certain overseas nationals studying at certain UK institutions, and certain overseas nationals going to certain um, overseas institutions in Europe, and and when I say certain, effectively we mean really premium institutions and courses. So really top end. Um, Typically tends to be an MBA program because that's where the funding requirement is the greatest. But it really is where we analyze an individual, and our process, again, what it does is it sort of says, okay, look, this is a non-UK national, so there's an additional element of risk here, and then we sort of, our system either, and process either tries to rationalize that risk, and either we can or we can't, and when I say we can, to the extent where the nationality becomes irrelevant, right? So then if I can see a profile, an assessment, which kind of has, tier one sort of undergrad, there's an established career at a well-known company and so on, so the point where actually does it really matter um, where they're from, because we could, and then they're going to a top school which is selective, difficult to get into it, and so on. So when all of that sort of lines up, then we're comfortable, because again, what we've done is we've identified that sort of ambitious individual who's ticked the can pay, will pay boxes as far as the assessment is concerned.
Mike Powell says he's a little confused by the grace period. A post-grad can be 5 years, so will you be lending money for 5 years before they start
No,
repaying?
no. So that presumably that's kind of in a PhD context. So we don't really do PhD funding. We would if it was a part-time PhD. So you recall I said for part-time courses the repayment starts straight away. So if someone came along and said they're doing a PhD, that's open-ended, as exactly as Mike says. I can go on for 5 years or even longer, and so we're okay with that if the repayment starts straight away. And for that, obviously, it's not just that someone says I'm doing it part-time. We need to then see and verify the income on the other side, which we do, and then as long as it's affordable, we'll do that. And so then it doesn't really matter. Otherwise, the issue is you don't exactly know when to start the loan repayments, because and that kind of program can be open-ended in terms of when you actually finish. So what we do is typically a master's program is 1 year. Some MBA programs, and I refer to the physician associate studies course, which is a 2-year course. So some courses are 2 years, so the interest will accrue, but those courses have a fixed start date and a fixed end date, and then we start the repayments after that.
Okay, let's see. John Day says, which employment sectors do you see as most attractive from a lender's point of view?
Employment sectors, or does he mean courses and
This is
universities? I mean, so
employment. So if they're taking I would imagine somebody going to medical
so
school would be considered a very attractive person to lend to, maybe, or not.
yeah, I mean, look, we're, in a way, that's where we're completely focused. So, every loan on the platform has that angle to it, and that's exactly what, again, part of the assessment focuses on is where will they end up based on what they're doing, or sometimes what they've done in the past, and so, um, finance, law, we do a lot of the bootcamp loans, where individuals end up as sort of UX UI coders and software developers. Those are that's a very kind of buoyant sector from an employment perspective. But all the MBA grads, I mean, they all sort of end up either in the city or in consulting. So yeah, there's a range, but that's very much what we're focused on, and the medical stuff as well. So
if I apply for a loan to go to a master's degree in German polka music, you're probably going to deny it, right?
So
that was a tongue-in-cheek question, but
no, absolutely. But and so yes is the answer, because that's what that's the context in which you're asking it. But let me tell you something. We have an individual who's doing an MA in conducting, right? Now, so that sort of, so you say, okay, that's interesting. But actually, let me tell you a bit about their profile. They're a music teacher at a private school in London. They have a BA in music. They have an MA in music, and and they're studying at one of the top sort of places to do conducting in London, right? So in that context, what you see an individual who's looking to pick up an extra skill, and perhaps then maybe bring that into his sort of skill set from a work perspective. But but does that individual necessarily have £10,000 saved up to sort of pay off in one go? No, right? So so can we lend that individual? Well, based on the sort of checks and stuff that we do, yes. And so it's got to be relevant. But you're absolutely right. So if we don't see an outcome to it, and it's purely recreational, then it comes down to sort of it's less likely to, because we don't see the outcome, and it'll, if it will fall down, it may fall down on the ability to can pay, or because we don't see the affordability there.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try to get through these last few quickly for you. I don't want to keep you on here forever. I definitely appreciate and value your time.
No, it's great being here, and it's great to be
okay. Okay, cool. John Morgan, and this is something I think I forgot to ask you about, but this goes into the financial health of Lendwise itself as a company. We've seen a lot of companies go under in the peer-to-peer sector, so we got to ask these difficult questions. But question one is Lendwise profitable? And if not, when are you looking to be profitable?
We're expecting to be profitable, at least on a monthly basis later this year.
Okay.
And then next year will be our first full year.
Okay. And then where do you get your funding from? Are you VC backed, or is it private money, or
it's private. It's a combination of bootstrapped, friends, families, associates. Yeah.
Okay. Is that stressful?
No, it's not. We're very fortunate. And we're sort of well covered, if I can use that expression, to sort of just be able to focus on what we're doing and growing the business.
Okay. ES says, I think she may be in Portugal, but don't get me wrong. Well, hopefully it's a she and maybe a he. After finishing their course, how soon do they have to start repaying the loan? And what happens if they don't manage to get a job to pay it back?
Excellent question. So typically, they can get up to 6 months additional grace, as we call it, after the course finishes. We set that. And typically what we tend to do is set, I think on average, we've done a lot of data crunching on this also. And the net of it is that actually 3 months is round about the optimum sort of period after a course finishes to sort of set the repayments. So additional 3 months, the repayments start after 3 months after the course ends. And we found that to be quite successful. We're always monitoring it. So then there's the ability to provide a bit more grace if we need to, if they haven't quite found a job. But again, these are individuals who are very driven, and for many courses, the recruitment process starts, well, as soon as, kind of almost, because if you think about 1-year courses, you sort of start, and before long, you're into the recruitment cycle already. And so these guys are very driven. The other thing I should mention is that one of the things, the variables that we look at when we lend to, and something that we're very strong on, is alignment even with our borrowers. And so when we look at what we refer to as their cost of attendance, i.e. their tuition fees, but also their sort of living expenses and so on, and we look at how much they're contributing in, and that's also a factor that plays into the whole analysis. And we will always require them to pay the deposit for the course themselves. So we want it to be that they've also put their hands in their pockets, and so so there is that alignment, and that works really well. So especially so that question is an excellent question, because it draws it out so that they are driven, because it's not just someone else's money they've studied on; they've put their own money in as well. So yeah, they're driven to go out there and get a job.
Okay, that's a good point. Never even thought about that. What do the deposits generally tend to be? Are they a percentage of total tuition, or?
Yeah, they can be. I mean, quite often 10%, sometimes a bit higher.
Oh, okay. Paul New says, do you get interest while the students are studying, or only once they complete the course? So I guess that kind of depends on the situation, but maybe a better question is, what percentage of borrowers pay from the beginning through the loan to the grace period?
So I would say maybe around a third, maybe a quarter to a third of our loans are part-time in nature, i.e. the repayments are starting at the same time as the disbursement, i.e. when the loan starts, because, as I say, they're either on a part-time course, or it's an executive MBA program, or it's an online or a boot camp of some kind, where they're working as well at the same time. Otherwise, they are sort of on average a 1-year full-time program, with the exception of some 2-year programs, but generally on average it's a 1-year program. So the interest will accrue, but you will start to receive it as a lender into your account once they graduate, and the repayments start. But I think it's important to remember that this is sort of our fourth coming on to fifth cycle now. So we've got a number of, so if you think about every cycle, 1 year, and then loans are in repayment, and then the loans that were written in the year after are also in repayment, and so on. So there are plenty of loans on our platform that are in repayment. So you can, it's not as if, so it's not that if you become a lender on Lendwise today, you've got to wait a year before your interest repayments come in. It's not that at all. And our investor team will, very gladly kind of, sort of help you out on and explain that in greater detail if necessary.
So I would imagine the way that you could get into loans that are already repaying is through the secondary market. But if you use
Correct.
the auto lend feature, that's not going. Is that going to pick up any already in repayment
Yes.
loans?
It picks up both from primary and secondary. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And primary one. So if you were, if you apply to do your German polka music, well, I don't know if you'd get that one, but if you apply to do your master's in finance, let's say, and you were doing it on a part-time basis, right? That would go on the primary market, but the repayments would start straight away, and so again, that would be picked up by AutoLend as well.
Okay. Let's see here. What else I got for you? Okay. Alan Toom says, "Is there a risk rating? If so, where is it on the secondary market loans? How do people grade risk on these loans?"
So correct. So we don't, because so we it's the interest rate is your gauge. But the other thing to bear in mind is the secondary market doesn't have any non-performing loans on there. So the moment a loan becomes non-performing in any way, we take, and then if we, as long as it's not defaulted, and we can sort of fix it quickly, or address the issue, whatever it is, then it can go back on the secondary market. So there isn't otherwise a need to sort of distinguish between the secondary and the primary.
Okay. Let's see here. John Day says, "Do you expect defaults to increase significantly as the UK economy declines over the next few years?"
Look, I can certainly tell you that throughout the pandemic, where there was plenty of uncertainty, and people were sort of being let go and so on, which was not a good time for the economy or individuals. We we didn't find our borrowers were inordinately sort of affected. As I say, we are dealing with, and our system really tries to pick out the individuals that are just driven. So they're not satisfied. They're not the ones that are going to sit at home and do nothing. They've studied. They want that job. They want to go out. And when we had individuals who actually were out of work prior to the pandemic, who got jobs during the pandemic, and I think it doesn't matter. We're not talking about sort of casual jobs here. We're talking about individuals who want to become consultants, bankers, lawyers, and so those kind of there's always a position, especially if you think about it at the sort of graduate, sort of associate entry level. Those positions we've seen are always in demand.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's been our experience so far. I think it's all about picking the right borrowers.
That makes sense. Peter Vince says, do new loans tend to be more seasonable, i.e. mainly in September?
To a degree, yes. Although that is changing. There are a number of universities that have January starts for their cohorts. Imperial College have April starts, and they're not the only ones. And then you have the boot camps and other course providers that we work with that have rolling starts. So again, there isn't, and I think that in the combination of our secondary market, there's never any shortage of loans on the platforms to sort of be invested in.
It seems to me too, and somebody else put this in the comments, that if you wanted to de-risk, you would just go on the secondary market and buy more seasoned loans, right? In some ways. Because if you're borrowing or you're getting new loans, there's obviously no history, and then you also may be waiting on repayment for a while.
That's true to a certain extent. I mean, although nobody has a crystal ball as to when someone might have a shock.
It never works though.
Very good.
Yeah.
So you look. I think definitely what the secondary market allows you to do is you check the repayment history and see how many repayments have been achieved by a specific sort of borrower, and that is one more piece of information that you can look at. And I think, but you have to think, that loan was a primary loan at one point, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's it didn't become a secondary loan it was a primary loan. So yes, you can look at it, but you could have also been invested in that primary loan from the beginning.
All right, I got two more questions for you, and then we'll let you go. Actually, one comment. So you've a lot of positive comments, by the way. You probably can't see those.
Thank you.
But there's some people that have said good things about you and what you're doing. Last question, and this may be let's see here. Mike Powell says it's an FCA requirement lenders are informed on the wind down plan of a company, at least the basics, i.e. who will be managing the loan book if something were to happen to Lendwise. Is that not listed on the website somewhere?
I will check. I mean, the answer is we would manage it. But I also feel the current view of the board is that it would be managed in-house. Obviously, that's reviewed on a regular basis, and sort of as we grow, a different situation might be applicable later. But for now, it's very much felt that all the knowledge is in-house, and so managing it on lenders' behalf, should that ever happen, is best done by us as a management team.
Okay.
But I can check, and if I can come back to you on that one as well.
Sure, absolutely. I think that pretty much does it for all of the comments. So everybody, if you're interested in checking out Lendwise, you can go to their website. It is lendwise.com. lendwise.com, and you can sign up for an account, browse around. Is there anything else you want to tell the people of the world out there, Rishi?
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me. And I would, I'd love it if the people of the world came along and joined us in making the impact that we're having in the education space.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time, and we'd love to have you back on in the future. We can do an update if you're okay with that. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Delighted. Yeah, very much so.
You did very
Thanks
well.
for having me.
You had nothing to be nervous about. So you did very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot, Rishi.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye. So there you have it, everybody. Lendwise.com. Interesting niche, right? Something that definitely needs to be covered. People do need money to go to university. It is getting quite expensive, so seems like they have pretty good statistics as far as their collection rates and really lack of defaults from what I could see. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. We are going to get out of here. We've been on here for an hour and 20 minutes, so time to go. Hopefully we'll be back Tuesday for the stocks and crypto live stream, and then next Thursday, I think, also as a announcement on April 7th, we're going to have Mr. Stuart Law from Assets Capital live on the stream. So put that in your diary, put it in your file of facts, put it in your calendar, whatever you use. April 7th, tentatively, I think that is going to happen. So Stuart Law will be here from Assets Capital. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate every single one of you. Hit the like if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel if you're not a subscriber. And we will see you next time. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care. Bye.